G'day and welcome to another video with Better Picks. Hope this finds everyone well. Today I wanted to show a couple of tool options within Adobe Camera Raw where you're using luminance levels and colors to create masks. Now you can absolutely create masks without those options, but it can be a bit of a tedious and slow process if you're wanting to change or edit or adjust specific areas of an image. However, using a range of color or luminance allows you to quickly select different areas of an image. Now, these tools aren't going to work in every scenario, but they're certainly great to have in the toolkit just so that you know that if the image suits this type of editing, it will definitely work. Alright, so what I'm going to do first is, without any actual adjustments, I'm just going to use my adjustment brush, which the shortcut is K, and I'm just going to select, without any kind of accuracy or specifics, the two poles there, the red and white poles, and you can see, as I said, there's no real accuracy. And what I'm going to do is come down the very bottom of that adjustment brush, just scrolling down. You can see that you have Arrange Mask and you have the option for color. Now what I'm going to do is select the sample color picker there, and I'm going to select those red areas. I'm just going to click on that, and you can see now that that mask, if I turn that on and off, is just on those red areas. So I'm going to turn that off because I want us to see the effect that the changes will make. So essentially what I've done is I've made a adjustment brush selection on the image, and then I've specified that I only want that selection to be on the red, which you can see that that eyedropper tool is still there on screen. Now heading up to our new hue adjustment option, which is now part of our selective adjustments options within Camera Raw, I'm going to just click and drag, and you can see that that red is now changing to all of those colors within that hue adjustment option. Now that's a fantastic tool and very, very quick. As you can see, I've only made a couple of clicks and a very rough selection, and we're able to make those adjustments. Now, if you scroll down, you can see that the color range, there's an option there and a slider that basically allows you to adjust how much of that color range is actually being selected. So you can see as I slide that left and right, it's going to increase the color range that's actually going to be selected. Now, as you can see, I just like to apply a little bit of an increase to the default because it just makes sure that all of that color is selected. So it's kind of like two selections. So I've painted over those poles, and then I've selected the color within those poles. So even if right now there was red over here in the image, it wouldn't actually be adjusted because of that original adjustment brush selection that we made. Now, if we applied this to the entire image, then anything that's red would obviously be selected. So that's just a really quick and easy way, as you can see, to use a specific color that we've selected with the color picker along with the adjustment brush or selected adjustment, to make specific color adjustments within an image or a section of an image. So a fantastic tool there, and one that I think is really going to be quite useful. So I'm just going to adjust that over to a little bit of a green. There we go. Now the other option with this method of editing is that you can select based on brightness levels, not just color, as I mentioned earlier, which is where the luminance comes in. So you can see with this image that the base of the image is quite dark and the top of the image is quite bright, and there is a bit of a transition, a fairly solid line in the middle there. Now what we can do is, I'm just going to pop up, and again I'm going to just make some exposure and highlight adjustments, and what I'm wanting to do is to reduce the overall exposure of these bright areas so that it sits a little bit closer to these dark areas. Now, not obviously as dark because it's snow and it's the sky, it's naturally going to be brighter, but I just want to reduce that exposure just a little bit, just so that it's not feeling quite as overexposed. So what I'm going to do is use the adjustment brush again. I'm just going to increase the size of the brush just a little bit so that the painting effect is a little bit more efficient. And I'm just going to click and drag right across that image, and you can see that it's quite easy to simply reduce that exposure. Now you can see I haven't been very careful with where I've painted that adjustment. It's definitely gone over those rocks, and they're definitely now too dark in comparison to the top of the image. So what I'm going to do is go down to, again, the range mask. I'm going to go down to luminance, which is the brightness option, and I'll scroll down a little bit further, and you can see you have the luminance range, and there's two slider options there, one in the left hand side, which is the shadow area, and one on the right hand side, which is the brighter areas of the image. Now as I click, for example, in this case, as I click and drag on the shadow areas, what I'm actually doing is removing that adjustment from being affected or affecting the shadow areas. So I'm removing that reduction in exposure from affecting the shadow areas because it is now outside of that area between the two sliders. Now if I pull down the right hand slider, you can see that it is now removing the brighter areas as part of that adjustment. So in this case, I only want to remove the shadow areas, and I'm going to increase the smoothness just a little bit so that it does look a little bit more natural. There we go, that looks great. You can see that that has given a very natural adjustment to that transition between the adjustment brush affecting the brighter part of the image and not affecting the shadow part of the image. Now if we look at the before and after, you can see that it is quite subtle, but it's definitely made a difference. And of course we can just make further adjustments to that exposure if we want to. There's no definite line, and it's certainly made a better result, or allowed for a better result with that image where you have such a bright part of the image and such a dark part of the image. Alright, and there we go. Alright, moving down, here's another example where we have quite a dark foreground in the bottom part of the image and quite a bright upper part of the image. What I'm going to use for this one is the graduated filter, which is shortcut G. I'm just going to click and drag, and you can see that that's worked really well in the sky, but it's also darkened the tips of these flowers as well, which I don't want it to do. So what I'm going to do is pop down the range mask. Again, I'm going to go with luminance because we want to affect the brightness, and I'm going to remove those shadow areas. There we go. There we go, and you can just adjust to suit, and I'm going to just increase that smoothness just a little bit there. And if we look at the before and after, you can see that there's been definitely an adjustment in the brightness of the sky, but less effect so on the brightness of the flowers, which is exactly the result that we were hoping for. So you can see by using specific adjustments on images within Adobe Camera Raw, and then using that masking tool either on color or on luminosity, which is brightness, you can make some very specific and very quick and efficient selections within your images. And the possible uses for these tools is really endless. So whether it's portrait, whether it's wedding, commercial, there's a whole bunch of scenarios where these tools could definitely be useful. So I would definitely recommend experimenting with them and see if they are going to be useful when incorporating into your workflow. Thanks very much for stopping by. I hope you found this video useful. As always, any questions, please pop them below, and look forward to hearing from you again in the future. Take care.